You bought the black and white flashcards, the Mozart playlist, the brain building toy that costs more than your groceries. And yet, the thing that actually builds the most neural connections in your baby's brain, it costs nothing. And you're probably already doing it. But before I tell you what it is, I need you to understand something first. Between birth and age 3, your baby's brain forms over 1 million new neural connections every single second. 1 million per second. That's more connections per second than there are stars in the Milky Way. And the process that determines which connections survive and which ones get pruned away, it's not an app, it's not a curriculum, it's not the toy that plays Mozart. It's you, your voice, your presence, your everyday, ordinary interactions. Today, I'm going to show you 8 everyday moments you probably don't even think about, that are literally building the architecture of your child's brain. And I'm going to show you the neuroscience behind each one so you never second guess your parenting again. Some of these will surprise you. Some will make you feel like you've been doing everything right all along. And one of them, number 7, happens when you think you're failing. We'll get there. But first, here's what no one tells new parents. The most expensive toy in the store cannot do what your voice does in the cereal aisle. The latest brain training app cannot replicate what happens when your baby watches you laugh at your own mistakes. The flashcards cannot compete with bath time. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn will change how you see every single interaction you have with your child. But before we go any further, I want you to know where this information is coming from and why this work matters so much to me. I'm Carrie Bennett, and welcome to Brainy Beginnings Lab. I graduated from the University of Michigan, where I studied developmental and clinical psychology with a focus on children and adolescents. For more than 10 years, I've worked closely with children and families, helping parents better understand emotional regulation, attachment, anxiety, behavior, transitions, and the everyday moments that can quickly feel overwhelming. What pulled me into this field was a deep fascination with how the brain develops in the earliest years of life, and how ordinary, everyday interactions can literally shape the architecture of a child's future learning, confidence, emotional regulation, and ability to connect with the world around them. As an early interventionist, my work focuses on supporting and strengthening foundational brain development during the most critical stages of childhood. I work directly with young children to help build cognitive skills, language development, emotional regulation, attention, social connection, adaptive thinking, and long-term learning capacity through intentional early experiences and developmental support. And over the years, one thing became very clear to me. Most parents are not failing. They're responding to behaviors they were never taught how to interpret. At Brainy Beginnings Lab, my goal is to help parents understand what's actually happening beneath their child's behavior so they can respond with more clarity, confidence, and calm in the moments that matter most. Everything here is rooted in science-backed child development research, nervous system regulation, attachment science, and real-world experience, explained in a way that's practical, approachable, and usable in everyday life. And honestly, most parents are already doing more right than they realize. They just don't know that the small moments, the grocery store conversations, the bedtime routine, the messy meal times, the waiting room, the moments of struggle are the very things building the brain. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. If you're the kind of parent who actually wants to understand why things work, not just be told what to do, this channel is built for you. Hit subscribe. We post every Tuesday and Friday, and every single video is backed by peer-reviewed research. All right, let's start with the one that surprises parents the most. It costs nothing. It takes no extra time. You're probably doing it right now without realizing its power, and it happens in your kitchen. Number 1, narrating your way through the day. And I don't mean reading to your baby, although that matters too. I mean the running commentary that most parents do without even thinking about it. Okay, we're going to cut the banana now. See, it's yellow and squishy. Now it's going on your plate. That sounds like chatter, right? It's not. That is a neuroscience intervention. Every single one of those words is firing neurons in your baby's temporal lobe, the language center of the brain. But here's what most people don't realize. It's not just the temporal lobe lighting up. When you narrate with emotion, oh wow, look at that big red truck. You're also activating the limbic system, the brain's emotional processing center. The combination of language and emotion creates what neuroscientists call enriched encoding, memories and neural pathways that are stronger because they're tagged with feeling. Now, you might be thinking, does it matter how many words I say? Researchers at MIT asked the exact same question, and what they found changed everything we thought we knew about the word gap. Conversational turns, the back and forth exchanges between a parent and child, were a stronger predictor of language development and brain activity than the sheer number of words spoken. It's not about quantity, it's about engagement. The developmental window for this is precise. It starts from day one, but the period between 6 and 24 months is when the brain's language circuits are most rapidly forming. By age 2, a child who has been narrated to consistently can have a vocabulary 300 words larger than a child who hasn't. But here's the part that surprises most parents, and it's the part I wish someone had told me earlier in my career. It doesn't matter if your baby doesn't respond yet, then the neural pathways are forming whether they babble back or not. Your voice is literally building their brain's operating system. Patricia Kuhl at the University of Washington calls this statistical learning. Your baby's brain is running probabilities on every sound it hears, mapping patterns, building predictions. By 8 months old, babies who hear more live narration can distinguish speech sounds that other babies cannot. The window is that precise. The stakes are that real. Here's what this looks like in practice. You're at the grocery store, your toddler's in the cart. Instead of scrolling your phone, you narrate, "We need eggs. Can you see the eggs? They're in a box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 eggs." That 60-second interaction just activated language processing, number sense, visual tracking, and social connection, 4 neural networks at once. Now, number 2 is one that every parent fights against, and once you hear the science behind it, you'll never look at your kitchen the same way. The messy mealtime, and I know, you want to wipe that face. You want to guide the spoon. You want to stop the avocado from reaching the ceiling, but here's what's happening in your baby's brain when they smear sweet potato across the high chair tray. Every time your baby grabs food with their fingers, they're building fine motor neural pathways in the motor cortex. Every time they feel the texture, smooth yogurt, rough toast, squishy banana, they're firing sensory integration circuits that connect touch, proprioception, and spatial awareness. And the research on this is remarkable. Dr. Jean Ayres' pioneering sensory integration research showed that children who engage in multisensory experiences build neural pathways 34% more efficiently than single sense stimulation. Your baby smearing food isn't making a mess. They're conducting neuroscience research. But here's where it gets really important. And this is the part that connects to something years down the road that most parents never see coming. The developmental window is 6 to 18 months, the peak period for sensory motor integration. And this window matters because sensory motor integration isn't just about eating. It's the foundation for handwriting, for dressing independently, for playing sports, for using tools. Every occupational therapist who works with school-age children will tell you the kids who struggle with pencil grip, scissor use, and button fastening are disproportionately the kids who had limited self-feeding experience as infants. The high chair tray is the first classroom. Picture this. Your 10-month-old is in the high chair. You put 3 pieces of sliced peach on the tray. They pick one up, squeeze it, it slips. They try again with a different grip. That adjustment, that tiny, messy, frustrating moment, is their brain building the same neural circuitry they'll later use to hold a pencil, button a shirt, and tie their shoes. And there's a hidden bonus happening at the same time that ties back to what we just covered with narration. When your baby squishes a blueberry and you say squishy, you squished it, it's purple now, you're pairing the sensory experience with language. This dual coding, the feeling and the word arriving together, creates a richer, more durable neural connection than either one alone. The mess isn't just tolerable, it's optimal. So the next time you're tempted to guide the spoon, wait 5 seconds, let them try. Those 5 seconds are building architecture that will serve them for decades. Number 3, and this one does something to your baby's brain that no toy, no app, and no class can replicate. But it's the thing most parents call boring, your bedtime routine. The exact same bath, the exact same book, the exact same song, the exact same good night, every single night. You think it's repetitive? Your baby's brain thinks it's essential. Predictable routines do something extraordinary to the infant brain. They lower cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and in high or chronic levels, it literally damages developing neural connections. When your baby's brain can predict what comes next, the stress response system downregulates, and the brain can redirect that energy toward growth, memory consolidation, and learning. Research from the journal Early Human Development found that consistent bedtime routines were significantly linked to better cognitive and language development in toddlerhood, not because of the bath or the book specifically, but because of the predictability. The brain thrives on patterns it can trust. The developmental window from birth, but it becomes especially critical between 4 and 12 months when the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the stress response system, is actively calibrating. The routines you set now are literally programming your child's baseline stress response for life. Here's your scenario. It's 7 p.m., bath, pajamas, 2 books, 1 song, crib, same order, same voice, same calm. Your baby isn't bored. Every repetition is a rep at the gym, building the neural muscle of self-regulation. And a child who can self-regulate, that child can learn anything. And here's a detail most people miss, one that might completely change how you think about bedtime tonight. The routine doesn't need to be long. Research by Jody Mindell found that even a brief, consistent 3-step routine, as simple as bath, book, bed, was sufficient to improve sleep quality, reduce nighttime wakings, and improve daytime mood and attention. It's not about the length, it's about the sameness. The brain is pattern hungry. Feed it. Number 4. And this one is hard for every loving parent, but what happens in the next 90 seconds might be the most important thing I say today. Letting them struggle just a little bit before you help. When your toddler is trying to put on a shoe and you can see they've got it backwards, when they're trying to stack a block and it keeps falling, your instinct is to fix it. But in those 10 to 15 seconds of productive struggle, something remarkable is happening. The prefrontal cortex is firing. Now, why does the prefrontal cortex matter so much? Because it's the CEO of the brain. It controls problem solving, impulse control, planning, and emotional regulation. And here's the key. It only develops through use. You cannot build a prefrontal cortex by watching someone else solve problems. Let that sink in for a moment. A child who never has to figure things out will arrive at kindergarten with a prefrontal cortex that is structurally less developed than a child who struggled regularly with support. Harvard's Center on the Developing Child calls this serve and return at its most powerful. The child serves the struggle and the parent returns not with solutions, but with scaffolding. Try turning it. What if you use the other hand? You're so close. The developmental window, 12 to 36 months. This is when the prefrontal cortex undergoes its most rapid period of synapse formation. But I want to show you exactly what this looks like, because the moment I'm about to describe contains 3 separate brain-building events happening simultaneously. Picture this. Your 18-month-old is trying to put a lid on a container. It's not lining up. They try once, twice, 3 times. They look at you. This is the moment. Instead of taking it and doing it for them, you say, you're working so hard, try turning it. They turn it, it clicks, that small, ordinary kitchen floor click, just released a surge of dopamine that reinforced the entire problem-solving circuit. They don't just feel good, their brain just got stronger. Developmental psychologist Lev Vygotsky called this the zone of proximal development, the sweet spot between what a child can do alone and what they can do with help. When you step in too soon, you rob them of the struggle that builds the circuit. When you step in too late, frustration overwhelms the learning. The magic is in the middle, and only a present, attentive parent can find that middle in real time. The goal isn't to let them fail. The goal is to let them work and then show up right on time with the smallest amount of help that lets them succeed. Number 5, bath time. And I'm not talking about hygiene. I'm talking about what might be the most underrated neuroscience laboratory in your entire house. When your baby is in the water, 3 things are happening simultaneously, and most parents have no idea about any of them. 1, the vestibular system, responsible for balance and spatial orientation, is being stimulated by the movement of water against their body. 2, the proprioceptive system, the sense of where your body is in space, is getting rich feedback from water resistance. 3, sensory integration circuits are firing as the brain processes temperature, texture, sound, and visual information all at once. But there's something water does that no toy on the market can replicate. Water provides natural resistance. Every splash, every pour, every reach for a floating cup gives your baby's muscles and joints constant proprioceptive feedback. This feedback is how the brain builds its internal body map. And that body map is the foundation for everything from handwriting to sports to sitting still in a chair. The developmental window, birth to 24 months for vestibular and proprioceptive calibration. Now let me paint you a picture because what I'm about to describe activates 5 neural networks from a single cup of water. Imagine this. Your 8-month-old is in the tub. You pour water from a cup. They watch it fall. They reach for the cup. You hand it to them. They try to pour. Water goes everywhere. They laugh. You laugh. That 30-second loop. Watch, reach, try, fail, laugh, try again. Just activated the motor cortex, the visual cortex, cause and effect reasoning, social bonding circuits, and emotional regulation. 5 neural networks, 1 cup of water. And here's the detail that makes bath time even more powerful. Warm water activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest branch that counterbalances the stress response. So while your baby is building motor skills and sensory maps, their nervous system is simultaneously being bathed, literally, in calm. It's not just play, it's therapy disguised as fun. Number 6. And this one might be the most counterintuitive thing I say in this entire video. If I told you what it was right now, you probably wouldn't believe me. So let me set it up. We live in a culture that tells parents every moment must be stimulating, educational, productive. Every minute must be optimized. There's a toy for car rides, an app for waiting rooms, a playlist for nap time. The message is clear. Empty time is wasted time, but neuroscience says something completely different. Number 6 is doing nothing together. The brain has a network called the default mode network, and it's one of the most important circuits in the entire brain. It's responsible for creativity, self-reflection, imagination, and the ability to envision the future. It's the network that lets us daydream, pretend, wonder what if, and process our experiences into meaning. And here's the catch. This is the part that changes everything. The default mode network only activates when the brain is not being externally stimulated, when there's no screen, no toy making sounds, no adult directing activity. When a child is left to sit, observe, daydream, and wander mentally, that's when this network comes online and starts building. The developmental window. The default mode network begins forming around 12 months and undergoes significant development through age 5. Children who have regular periods of unstimulated time show stronger imagination, better problem-solving flexibility, and higher creativity scores in later childhood. Mary Helen Imerdino-Yang at USC published a landmark paper arguing that this resting state is actually one of the most productive states the brain can be in. She wrote, "Rest is not idleness. When we are not externally stimulated, the brain is actively consolidating memories, making sense of experiences, and building the self." For a toddler, this means every moment of quiet boredom is a moment of deep internal construction. Here's what this looks like. Saturday morning, you and your toddler are sitting on the back porch. No plan. They're picking at grass, watching an ant, stacking sticks and knocking them over. You're just there, present, available, but not directing. That unstructured, boring, beautiful moment, that's the default mode network getting its workout, and you being there, calm, available, not on your phone, is the safety signal that allows their brain to shift into that creative, exploratory state. Number 7, this is the one I promised you in the first 60 seconds of this video, the one that happens when you think you're failing, letting your child watch you fail and recover. Most parenting advice tells you to model success. Be confident, be competent, show your child how it's done, and that matters. But what neuroscience tells us is that modeling failure and recovery from failure is equally important, maybe more important. So what's actually happening in your child's brain when they watch you mess up? Your baby's brain is equipped with mirror neurons, a neural system specifically designed to learn by watching others. When your toddler watches you try to open a jar and struggle, watches you drop your keys and laugh, watches you make a mistake on a recipe and calmly start over, their mirror neuron system is not just observing, it's rehearsing. It's literally running a simulation of what you're doing, building the same motor patterns and emotional responses in their own brain. But here's what makes this brain building rather than stress inducing, and this is the part every parent needs to hear. Your emotional response is the key. When you model calm recovery, oops, that didn't work, let me try another way. You are literally programming your child's emotional regulation circuitry. Their amygdala, the brain's alarm system, learns from your amygdala. If your response to failure is calm, their brain encodes failure is safe. And a brain that believes failure is safe, that brain will take risks, try harder things, learn faster. The developmental window, mirror neurons are active from birth, but the period between 9 and 30 months is when observational learning is at its peak. This is why toddlers imitate everything, including your emotional responses to frustration. Andrew Meltzoff at the University of Washington demonstrated that newborns as young as 42 minutes old can imitate facial expressions. 42 minutes. Before they've even had their first feeding, they're already watching and copying. By 18 months, toddlers don't just imitate actions, they imitate intentions. If they see you try to pull apart a toy and fail, they'll try to complete the action you intended, not the one you performed. They're not copying behavior, they're reading minds and using what they read to build their own. Now watch how many brain systems fire in this single everyday moment. Picture this, you're building a block tower with your 2-year-old. You place one block wrong and it topples. Instead of immediately rebuilding, you pause, you say, oh, it fell, that's okay, let's see why. You examine it together, you try a different way. That moment of shared problem solving after failure, that's the mirror neuron system, the prefrontal cortex, and the emotional regulation circuit all firing together. 3 networks, 1 knocked over tower. This connects to what Ed Tronick found in his still face experiments, the idea that repair after rupture is more important than perfection. When your child watches you fail, get frustrated, take a breath, and try again, they're learning the entire emotional arc of resilience. Not just the success part, the recovery part, and the recovery is what builds the brain. So stop pretending to be perfect. Your imperfection, handled with grace, is one of the most powerful brain building tools you have. Number 8, and I saved this one for last because it happens in the moments you're most tempted to hand over the phone. The waiting room, the grocery checkout line, the car ride, the elevator, these moments feel like dead time. We call them in-between moments, transition moments, throwaway moments, but for your baby's brain, they are prime building time if you do one simple thing. When a toddler is in a waiting room without a phone or tablet, their brain has to do something extraordinary. It has to entertain itself. It has to observe. It has to process the environment, the buzzing lights, the other people, the patterns on the carpet. It has to tolerate a low level of discomfort. And that tolerance, that's not just patience. That's a neural circuit being built in real time. Here's what's firing, that low level discomfort. That's the anterior cingulate cortex building frustration tolerance. The observation, that's the visual cortex and the attention networks building sustained focus. The self-entertainment, that's the creativity center finding something interesting where there appears to be nothing. And here's the long-term payoff, and this one shocked me when I first read the research. Research on delayed gratification, famously studied in Walter Mischel's marshmallow experiments, shows that the ability to tolerate waiting is one of the strongest predictors of academic success, career achievement, and emotional well-being in adulthood. And that ability isn't something children are born with. It's built in moments exactly like these. The developmental window, the anterior cingulate cortex, undergoes its most significant development between 18 and 36 months. This is the exact age when toddlers throw the biggest tantrums in checkout lines, and that's not a coincidence. The tantrums are the construction noise of a brain building frustration tolerance. Every checkout line you survive together without handing over the phone is another rep for that circuit. Here's your scenario. You're in the checkout line, your 2-year-old is getting restless. Instead of the phone, you try, How many apples are on that sign? Can you find something red? What sound does the beep machine make? You're not just surviving the line, you're building attention, language, observation, and frustration tolerance simultaneously. And here's the counterintuitive truth about screens in these moments. It's not that screens are inherently evil. It's that every moment spent on a screen during a waiting period is a moment the anterior cingulate cortex doesn't have to work. It's like putting a child in a wheelchair to prevent them from having to walk. The muscle never builds, the waiting room, the car ride, the checkout line. These are the gyms where frustration tolerance gets its reps. Take the reps. Now let me step back and show you what all of this adds up to. Because these 8 interactions aren't just cute developmental moments, they are the construction project of a lifetime. And the research on where they lead is staggering. Here's what a decades-long study found. And pay attention, because this single finding overturns what most people assume about child development. The Minnesota Longitudinal Study of Risk and Adaptation, one of the longest-running developmental studies in history, found that the quality of parent-child interactions in the first 3 years was a stronger predictor of cognitive ability at age 12 than socioeconomic status, maternal education, or the child's own temperament. Not genetics, not wealth, not how many books you own, the interactions, the narrating, the messy meal times, the bedtime routines, the moments of productive struggle. These are what the data across decades of longitudinal research identify as the strongest building blocks of cognitive ability. But what about language specifically? The findings are even more striking. Hart and Risley's landmark study found a 30 million word gap between children in language-rich versus language-poor environments by age 3. But more recent research from MIT shows it's not just the words, it's the turns. Conversational back and forth was the single strongest predictor of language ability, regardless of income or education. Every narration, every what do you see, every pause you leave for them to babble back, that closes the gap. On emotional regulation, children who experience consistent, predictable caregiving in the first 3 years show measurably lower cortisol reactivity in adolescence. Their stress response systems are literally calibrated differently. They can handle more pressure, recover from setbacks faster, and maintain emotional stability under conditions that derail their peers. And this one is personal for a lot of parents. And I need you to really hear this next part. If you struggle with anxiety yourself, if you find yourself worrying about whether you're doing enough, whether you're doing it right, know this. The fact that you care enough to worry is itself protective. Megan Gunner's research at the University of Minnesota showed that the presence of a responsive caregiver is the single most powerful buffer against toxic stress. You don't have to be calm all the time. You just have to be there consistently, reliably. That presence is the architecture on memory and learning. Sleep research from the journal Nature Neuroscience demonstrates that predictable routines and adequate sleep in the first 2 years are directly linked to hippocampal development, the brain's memory center. Children with strong early routines show better memory encoding, faster learning, and higher academic achievement through elementary school and beyond. Now here's what ties all 4 of these outcomes together. And this is the insight that changed how I approach my work with families. They're not 4 separate things. They're all expressions of the same underlying architecture. A brain that was built with rich language, input, consistent routines, productive struggle, sensory exploration, creative downtime, modeled resilience, and practiced patience. That brain doesn't just perform well on one measure. It performs well across the board. Because you weren't training isolated skills, you were building a foundation. Here's the bottom line. You don't need flashcards. You don't need expensive programs. You don't need to turn your home into a preschool classroom. You need to narrate, let them struggle, be predictable, share failures, and sometimes, beautifully, do nothing at all. The science is clear. Your presence, your patience, and your ordinary daily life are the most powerful brain-building tools that exist. Okay, now you know what to do. But here's the question every parent asks me next. How do I know it's working? Here are 3 simple, no-equipment ways to monitor your baby's brain development at home. Think of these as your parenting dashboard. Method 1, track the serve and return ratio. For 1 week, pay attention to how many of your child's bids for connection, the looks, the points, the babbles, the outstretched hands, you respond to versus miss. Research by John Gottman found that responding to approximately 70% of bids is the threshold for healthy development. 70%, not 90, not 100. You're allowed to miss 30% of bids and your child will still develop a secure, well-built brain. That should feel liberating. You don't need a spreadsheet, just awareness. At the end of each day, ask yourself, did I catch most of their bids today? If the answer is usually yes, you're in the zone. Method 2, the curiosity check. Once a week, put your child in a new environment or give them a new object and observe. It can be as simple as a new toy, a pine cone from the yard, or a walk down a different street. A brain that is building well will show curiosity, approaching, exploring, manipulating, and then looking back at you to share the experience. And that looking back moment, it has a name, and it reveals more about your child's brain development than any test. It's called social referencing, and it's one of the clearest signs of healthy brain development. It means the child's social cognition, exploration circuits, and emotional security are all functioning together. The child is saying without words, I found something interesting and I want to share it with you, and I trust you enough to use your reaction as my guide. That's 3 neural networks working in concert from a single glance. Method 3, the frustration recovery window. And this one is the most powerful home assessment I know. Watch how long it takes your child to recover from a small frustration. A toy taken away, a block that won't stack, a request denied. Between 12 and 24 months, recovery should be gradually getting shorter with your co-regulation support. If at 12 months they take 5 minutes to settle, by 18 months it might be 3 minutes, and by 24 months 2. You're watching the prefrontal cortex come online in real time. That shrinking recovery window is the single most visible sign that the brain building is working. A note on this, every child develops at their own pace. These are general patterns, not rigid benchmarks. If you have concerns about your child's development, talk to your pediatrician. But for the vast majority of parents, these 3 observations will give you more useful information than any developmental app on the market. And here's the most important thing to monitor: yourself. Are you present during transitions? Are you narrating at least some of the day? Are you letting them struggle before helping? Are you keeping routines predictable? If you're doing those things consistently, not perfectly consistently, the brain building is happening. Donald Winnicott, one of the most influential pediatricians in history, coined the term good enough parent because children don't need optimal. They need consistent. They need a caregiver who shows up more often than not, who repairs when they miss, who keeps trying even on the hard days. If that's you, and if you're watching this video, it almost certainly is, trust the science, trust yourself. If this video changed how you see your everyday moments with your child, share it with a parent who needs to hear this. Lead with what surprised you, not what they should do. I just learned that bath time builds the same brain circuits as balance therapy lands very differently. Then you should stop using screens at dinner. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 8 interactions surprised you the most, and which one are you going to pay more attention to starting today? I read every single comment and I use them to plan future videos. If you missed our Tuesday video on anxious attachment, how it starts and what you can do about it, it's linked right here. It's the perfect companion to what you just watched. Next Friday, we're going deep on something that connects directly to what we covered today: the science of play, specifically the types of play that build different brain regions and the one type of play that most parents accidentally shut down. You're not going to want to miss it. I'm Carrie. Your everyday moments are building something extraordinary. And the fact that you watched this whole video, that tells me you're the kind of parent whose child is lucky to have them. I'll see you next time.